Let's discuss the morphology of neurons. There are many shapes and types of neurons, but let's have the most common type as an example. There are several processes that carry the electrical activity towards the cell body. They are called dendrites. Then we got the cell body with the nucleus and nucleolus, and then we have one process that carries the information away from the cell body. So the processes that are very often intensely branched and are gathering the information, they are ramified, they can have hundreds and thousands of contacts, and they carry the information towards the cell body. They are called dendrites. The dendrites carry the information to the cell body, which is called also afferent or centripetal processes. Dendrites are branched into dendritic trees, and the sites of contacts with other cell processes can be seen as the dendritic spines. This is the cell body, also known as the soma or perikaryon. Peri means like around, karyon is nucleus. It's the metabolic center of the cell, where the nucleus is very often found with nucleolus. Nucleus, there is lots of euchromatin, and there is usually pretty rich granular endoplasmic reticulum, which even has its own term here in neurons. It's called Nissl substance. So this is the granular endoplasmic reticulum, also known as the Nissl substance or tigroid substance. And then we have one process that carries the information away from the cell body. This is called axon or neurit, and this direction is afferent, efferent, or centrifugal. Away from the center. The axon may have side branches called collaterals, axon collaterals, and it usually ends with a terminal ramification called terminal arborization. And if we take an example of a motor neuron, and it ends with a motor end plate on the surface of a skeletal muscle fiber, let us say. The one with many peripheral nuclei and cross striation. So this is skeletal muscle fiber. This terminal branching of the axon is also called arborization or telodendrion. And this neuromuscular junction is known as the motor end plate. The axon may have more collaterals, and both the axon as well as the dendrites have several envelopes. There is a layer of a lipid substance called myelin, of course only in those myelinated fibers, and this is a product of neuroglial cells that are surrounding the processes. So we got the glia cells here, like the outer sheath. So the orange is the myelin sheath, and the outer sheath is the glia cell sheath. The glia cells that are responsible for the production of myelin are different in central nervous system. These are the oligodendroglia cells, while in the peripheral nervous system the Schwann cells are present. Schwann cells. The axon, the first part of the axon, not only it does not contain any of the nissl substance, but it also does not have this sheath. So this part is called the axon hillock. The one without the nissl substance. And the first part of the axon is called the initial segment. It's without the myelin, usually. Here are the nodes of Ranvier. Where the surface of the axon is in direct contact with the tissue fluid, and the distance between the two nodes of Ranvier is called internodium. In peripheral nerves, it's like 0.5 millimeters. So this is a general structure of a neuron. We can classify the neurons according to the number of processes. So if a neuron has no cell processes at all, it's got only the cell body, you will call it apolar neuron. An example for this would be embryonic neuroblasts that are still dividing, and they will grow the processes later on. Another example would be a cell body with only one process. This would be called unipolar neuron. And a good example would be photoreceptors of retina. Some neurons have a common segment where the dendrite runs parallel to the axon. So this is the dendrite, this is the axon, and this common part is called the dendroxon. These neurons are called pseudo-unipolar, and this is exactly how the sensory neurons of the spinal ganglia look like. Other neurons have a dendrite running towards the cell body, which gives rise to an axon. This is called bipolar neuron. And again, an example for this would be the second neuron of retina, so the one that takes the information from the photoreceptors. The most common type in the human body would be this type, actually, the one with many dendrites and one axon. So many dendrites and a single axon. It is called multipolar neuron. A good example would be, for example, motor neurons of the spinal cord in the anterior horns, or Purkinje neurons in the cerebellar cortex. You can also classify neurons according to shape. And there are really many shapes and names and terms. I will mention two examples that will be useful for describing the neurons and their layers in the brain cortex. Neurons that have a shape of a pyramid, okay, with many processes, are called pyramidal neurons. For example, in the brain cortex. Small-sized neurons, round-shaped, with this granular appearance. They are also usually multipolar. Are called granular neurons.